So I want to just highlight a couple of things that I was reminded of as I was listening to this message, and also to remind the children. I was reminded of the story of Noah, because in this message, Santosh was talking about preparing to have our final destination. And I was reminded of how this world is going to end. Children, I do not know if you are convinced that this world is going to end. And there was another person who also said a very similar message, that the world was going to end. And his name was Noah. So I just put a couple of pictures to show you so that all your children can help see it. Can you see that picture? Can you spot Noah in the picture? Who do you think you are in this picture? Where are you in this picture? Do you see yourself in this picture? Are you talking about the world coming to an end? Are you thinking about the world coming to an end? There's one person who was talking about that and thinking about that there was going to be a very serious judgment. But you look at the picture and it doesn't look like there's any judgment coming. I remember I had to write a story in English or languages that I was learning, and you had to write either a good story or a bad story. If it was a bad story, I always put a lot of bad things around it, like the sky was gray and there was nothing. It was sound like there was going to be a storm. All kinds of bad things were happening. And then the bad thing happened. Well, this doesn't look like anything bad thing is going to happen. And I want to show you a verse in Matthew chapter 24. If you have a Bible, you can turn there. Matthew chapter 24. There's a verse that says this. Verse 37 and 38. That's the next slide. Matthew chapter 24, verse 37 and 38. For the coming of the Son of Man, Jesus coming again, look at this, what Jesus said, will be just like the days of Noah. What will the days of Noah be? Was there evil in the world? Yes, there was evil in the world. But here's what Jesus said about the last days of Noah. For as in those days before the flood, look at what they were doing. They were eating and drinking, marrying, giving in marriage. Normal things. That's all the children and the people were doing. So you can add to these things. We can add a few things to that. In the days before the final judgment, children were going to school and children were going and walking in the park, and their daddy was going to work and mommy was making foods, and we were going on vacations every now and then, and just a lot of normal things. Just like the days of Noah. I got into my sports team. I got into a drama. I got a good grade in school. Just like the days of Noah. I finally got admitted in the college that I wanted to get into. I got a bonus in my job. I got a child as I was praying for. My children went to college. Just like the days of Noah. Normal. Sky is blue. Trees are green. Everyone just having a normal time. Yes, there was a lot of sin too. As we probably know in the world today too, there's a lot of sin. But this was like the days of Noah. So children, just because you see blue skies, just because you see good weather, just because you see coronavirus maybe coming to an end or slowing down and we're able to do things out in public again, doesn't mean that these words are not true anymore. Just like the days of Noah, blue skies, green trees, everything fun. And then the next verse says, until the day Noah entered the ark, and then the flood came. So I want to show you the next slide now. Now it's not so great, not so pretty anymore. And I just imagine myself, what if I was one of those people sitting on that rock? What would I be thinking at this time? I missed it. And so that's what it says. And actually, for those who have your Bible, it says they did not understand. They had no idea what was going on. All of a sudden, the water comes and then it's too late. It's too late to do anything after that. Now the dark, there's no chance to open it. So children, the previous picture tells us how life is. But this picture tells us how life is going to be any moment. We do not know when the Son of God will come. That's what he says. Verse 36, he says, I don't even know the day that'll come, but it'll come. And he compares it to like being like a thief in the night. And so the question I had as I looked at this picture was, is this ever going to happen again? God told Noah, I will never judge the earth again by flood. But God says, I want us to turn to 2 Peter chapter 3. Very sobering words in 2 Peter chapter 3. As we look at this picture, Peter uses this very picture. There's one thing that Peter used in both 1 Peter and 2 Peter. Somebody who was on his mind in both 1 Peter and 2 Peter was Noah. He talks about Noah in both those books of his. And Peter was thinking that the end could come anytime. And he was reminded of his Savior's words about saying, it'll just be like the days of Noah. And he was meditating on the life of Noah and the days of Noah. And it says that in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 6, that the world at that time was destroyed, being flooded with water. So, and then God sent the rainbow as a sign that it'll never be destroyed by water again. But look at what he says here in verse 7. The present heavens and earth by his word are being reserved for fire. So there's going to be another flood. It's not going to be a flood of water. It's going to be a flood of fire. And see in verse 10, the day of the Lord will come like a thief. Nobody's expecting a thief, otherwise you'll be ready. You'll be guarding it. It'll come like a thief where you don't expect it, where the heavens will pass away with a roar and the elements will be destroyed and the earth and its works will all be burnt up. Mount Everest, burnt up. Rocky Mountains, burnt up. Lake Tahoe, burnt up. The Pacific Ocean, burnt up. The earth, from what I can tell you, even the heavens, Jupiter, gone. Mars, gone. A flood is coming. And just like in the days of Noah, Peter was telling us, Jesus was telling us, just like the days of Noah, a day is coming when there will be a fire that will burn up all the heavens and all the earth. Obviously, when we say the heavens, we're talking about what we see in the heavens. So I want to show you a picture that has blessed me and my family, the next picture that we have in our house, to remind you that just like the ark, there is only one boat for you to get to safety. There is no two options. You see, if I look at this picture, the fire hasn't come to the whole world. I look at the fire having burnt up, maybe everybody who's died, kingdoms that used to live, been burnt up. There's a big gap in the earth, chasm, whatever you want to call it, where there's fires. But right now you're living in the city and there's lots of lights and there's lots of signs telling you to go in one direction. You don't know it's going to go down to hell. But there is only, children, I want you to remember what I told you about Noah. It doesn't feel this way. But this is what Peter is saying. This is what John's saying is, there's only one way to be saved from a guaranteed fire. And imagine Noah trying to convince the people of this earth, a flood is guaranteed. And they would have all laughed at him. And I'll tell you, the tendency in myself is also to laugh at the guarantee that the Lord is telling me a fire is coming. And you look at the sky and you look at society and you look at things, you'll be like, pandemic came and it seems like it's gone. Looks like human brains are smart enough to figure out these things. We don't feel like there'll be a fire that'll come that'll burn up everything. Just like in Noah's time, we didn't feel that there would be a flood. Just picture yourself. You know how many people were saved in Noah's time? 8. 8 out of how many? Maybe millions? How many people on the earth are living right now? Billions. A very small number of people are living as if a fire is coming and a guaranteed fire is coming. And Peter was telling us, This is Noah. Learn from Noah. 4,000, 5,000 years ago, there was a flood and it destroyed the whole earth. The whole earth except 8 people. And Peter is telling us, Jesus is telling us, now it's not going to be water, it's going to be fire. And he's going to burn up the heaven and the earth. And he's going to make a new heaven and a new earth. That's what Santosh was talking about, the game of Monopoly. In the game of Monopoly, I played the game of Monopoly where I had lots of houses, lots of rentals, and I just crushed the other team. And how I wished I could have saved that game, that strategy, that same roll of the dice, so that we could keep playing that same game over and over again, where I was always winning and coming to the right spots, and they were always coming to the right spots. But then the game's over, and all of those houses that I had strategically rolled the dice with and gotten just went back into the game box till the next game, and it was reset. It didn't matter. And another game like that is chess. If you don't know the game of chess, you have different pieces of different power. You have the queen, who can move almost in any direction. And you got the king, the most prized possession that you're trying to protect. You got the bishop and the knight and the castle. And you got the lowly pawn, just moving forward. But then the game's over. And what happens? The big queen, the big king, and the lowly pawn go back into the same box. What was the message from Monopoly and chess? What successes you get on this earth? What houses you have in this earth? What cars you drive on this earth? What degrees you get on this earth? What position, what glory? How many likes your YouTube channels get? Doesn't matter. The person who had millions of subscribers, that's what my children are fascinated by. People who got millions of subscribers. And our family who's got, I don't know, less than 2-digit number of subscribers, going back into the same box. Doesn't make a difference. What matters is those who do the will of God. Those who are on the way of the cross. We heard this today from Brother Stanley. The cross before me, the world behind me. Why do we sing this song? Not because it's a good idea, but also because the world is passing away. Not only is it going to be passed away, it's going to be burnt up. Everything in this world. We have to be convinced of this, not so that means we just give up on life and just go sit in the middle of the forest and do nothing. No, so that we make sure we are on the way of the cross. John says that those who do the will of God. So, dear brothers and sisters, dear children, I wanted to ask you a question about, am I on the way of the cross? If I'm on the way of the cross, it's not whether I chose to follow Jesus, but whether I am walking with Jesus. Dear brothers and sisters, dear children, look at your feet. Look down at how you're walking in your life. Are you choosing to please Jesus, or are you choosing to not please Jesus? I don't care what you did 1 week ago. I don't care what we did 10 years ago, 30 years ago, as adults or baptism, whatever it is. The question is, what are we doing now? Because you can walk back from the way of the cross and go back to the things of this world. We know plenty of people in the Bible who've done it, and since then. The question is, where are we today? Are we walking on the way of the cross? Because it said that Noah, at one point, that the door just shut and you couldn't open it up. And I looked at this picture, and that cross is going to just suddenly flip up. And you can't get onto that cross anymore. So tomorrow is not promised. Children, you have to choose today and every day to be on that cross. And it doesn't matter, like we heard about the Monopoly game. That's what it's coming to. And Peter says, you know what's going to be true about the new earth? He says that in verse 13. It's where not love dwells, even though love will be there. It's not where peace dwells, even though peace will be there. In verse 13, 2 Peter 3:13, is where righteousness dwells. So how we live is very important. We have to make sure that we support and value righteousness. The world behind me, the cross behind me. Let me guard my heart today with all diligence, because any day now, any moment now, the door will be shut, the cross will be lifted up, and you can't cross over. and the fire will catch up to us. So here are the two options. See, now I want to show you in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 14. Therefore, beloved, since you're looking to these things, you're looking to a life away from the fire, here's how you want to be found in him. Be diligent. Guard your heart with all diligence. Be diligent to be found where? Where do you be found? By him. Next to him. Look at who's sitting next to you. Is Christ by you? You should be found. Where's Sandeep? He's next to Christ. Where should you be found? Right next to Christ. Not separate from Christ. Right next to Christ. Leaning on the beloved, as it says in Songs of Solomon's. Found. Where do you find Sandeep today? I found him next to Christ. Every day. Lord, I want to come back to be sitting next to Christ. In peace. That was a word that I underlined as well. Let us be found in Christ in peace, which means what? Not fighting with Christ, not grumbling with Christ, not murmuring, God, why did you allow this to happen? Why did you allow that to happen? Not disputing with Christ. As Paul says in Philippians 2, they are shameful children of God with reproach. Children of God who are grumbling and murmuring, God, why did you do this with me? That's what he says. Be diligent. Guard your heart to be found next to Christ in peace, not fighting with him. Let's drop any of our complaints that we have against God. Children and probably more the adults. Why did you make me this way? Why did you give me this? Why did you give me children like this? Why did you give me parents like this? Why did you give me a car like this? Why did you give me a house like this? Why did you give me a spouse like this? We have to drop all complaints and be found next to Christ in peace. Spotless and blameless. Kind, humble, merciful. Kind to our brothers and sisters. Dear children, kind in your speech. Not kind in your actions, and not kind some of the time. We've been talking about that as a family. It's nice to be kind when everything's going your way. But it's when children upset you, then that's the test, whether we'll be kind with our words, whether we'll be merciful with our words and our actions. It's when we are tested, when our brothers and sisters and our other people do not do the way we know they should do it. Then how do we act? Children, adults, let's remember a fire is coming. Let's go to that last slide. Which one is it going to be? It's no different. Don't be those two people on that rock when the flood came. I'm sure there were a couple of people like that. The last two people standing on the rock didn't make a difference. They were killed too. The fire is coming. Let us make sure we are on the way of the cross, being diligent to be found next to Christ, at peace with him, working on being spotless and blameless, because we're going to go to a kingdom where righteousness dwells. Thank you.